Mike, it's been a while since we had one of our Thoughts of Chairman Mike chats. Anyway, let's kick off, shall we, with your business dealings, because not only have you been to the USA recently, but you've also wrapped up some successful business deals over there.
Yeah, well, obviously it's not really connected to football work, even though Sci-Fi do sponsor the club in a small way. A lot of my time has been significantly taken with the American project, and it is nice to see some results after 5 years of hard work. You know, we've got a good team of guys out there, and things have so far going extremely well. With our first city starting work now, with several more coming on very soon. So, good on Sci-Fi Networks, and hopefully in the long term that'll have some positive inputs to the football club. Who knows, another sponsorship deal.
And talking of the football club, the last time we had a chat, well, TNS were looking to wrap up a double, and that was the case, Mike, come the final whistle of the season. So a very happy chairman indeed.
Very much so. I mean, it's been a tough season. I've got when I look back on the season, and people have had many opinions. I've always been confident of this season. There's only one game where I think that we were absolutely beaten, and I'll give them full credit to him. That was by Cardiff Met. We didn't deserve anything out of the game. It wasn't that we played poor, they played extremely well. And I was rather shocked by the result, but there was no excuses or reasons behind it, except thankfully it was just a poor day at the office. But I think many of the other games where we lost points, you could see that possibly a different day, a different rub of the green, there was different results available. First game against Connors Quay, I know we had probably quite a lot of a possession, dominated bits of the game, but ultimately we scored a perfectly legitimate equaliser, which, in all fairness, mistakes happen. Referees sometimes make mistakes. It wasn't offside. You can see that by the camera. So, there's 2 points, and there's several other games where different decisions, perhaps on a different day, wouldn't have been perhaps that way. Let's take the Bala game away, where Chris Marriott sent off. Possibly should have been a foul prior to that. The lad was clearly pulling Marriott's shirt, and we were winning the game quite comfortably at that time. And obviously the change in players on the field, again, another 2 points dropped. So, I mean, the season has worked out at the end, looking quite comfortable. I've got to say I'm very impressed with the number of goals that we've scored. But again, if you look at what Scott's had to do, we had a transitioning period where we've had one or two new lads coming through, one or two of the existing lads still being able to hold on to their shirts, and ultimately those changes have taken a little time to bed in. But as you can see, digging deep after the bad run has produced results, and since Christmas I think we've only dropped 2 points, which in anybody's book is extremely good. But the 99 goals and very few let in, I think 15 let in, is quite an amazing tally. So I'm very, very pleased with what we've done. I'm very, very excited about looking forward. And I remember saying this once before, from the Ken McKenna era, we had an extremely good team. But I'll always say it, we didn't have much pace in the side, but we were a great team of footballers. Then as we evolved to the next generation of players that came through the club, we had potential talent with a lot more pace. And that materialised under Craig Harrison's tenure. And again, that process has continued. We've brought in new players. We look to develop players, as I said, from a younger age rather than taking the established pro who's coming down on his career. We're looking for guys who perhaps have missed their chance somewhere else. We're keen to take those guys, and we're really, really keen to bring them on to their full potential. And I think you can see that with performances which now is a mainstay, the likes of Jamie Mullen. You mean a guy who's player of the season last year, extremely good performance again this. Those guys were slightly missed perhaps in the Premier League sides like Manchester United, where they had perhaps little time with. But if you look at the new lads that we're bringing in underneath, we're hoping that the same things go with them. We did the same with Ryan Brobble, Blaine Hudson. They're now established guys in the team, but we've got a plethora of other now young lads who are going to be exciting players for the future. Ones that are hopefully going to capture the attention of the media and deliver spectacular goals and play very entertaining football. You know, I appreciate other clubs choose the styles of play that they choose to play, but I'd like to hope that we are the team that leads the way in terms of entertainment. And even if you don't support our side, I'd like to hope that you could see how we want to play football, and we aren't going to change that style. We aren't going to revert to other styles of football. Yeah, there's only one way to play at TNS, and that's attacking football and outscore the opposition.
And as we continue to look back over the season just gone, Mike, not only did we win the league, we also won the JD Welsh Cup as well. The awards night, the JD Welsh Premier League Awards night on Saturday just gone. There were many awards which were fixed in stone, so to speak, for the New Saints. For example, Greg Draper's Golden Boot. But there were also players and Scott Rusco nominated for Player of the Season and Manager of the Season, respectively. And with the 4 on the shortlist for the Player of the Season, unfortunately we didn't get that one, but nevertheless we did have 3 players. You mentioned Jamie Mullen already, Aaron Edwards and Greg Draper. So not just the awards that were there that we knew about, but also the nominations, the shortlist. It shows, Mike, the depth of strength that we have at the New Saints.
Yes, and that is going to continue. People sort of have probably thought the transition from Craig would be one where we'd get weaker. I've seen it as a great positive. I mean, Craig did a great job for us, and I'd like to thank him for that. And but sometimes you just need to freshen things up to ensure that the vehicle goes forward with new ideas around what is the club's philosophy, which has been in place since I joined the club. There is only one way that TNS will play football. It is the club's philosophy. It's not a particular manager. What a manager can do is add to that philosophy. They can bring their own style to it, and I think that Scott's shown that he's been able to take the club's philosophy, deliver that within budget, and also ensure that we're there for the future. I mean, we're investing heavily now, not in first team professionals to come through. We're investing very heavily in the development of players in those academies. At all the different age groups, you see significant investment in the fact we've appointed a new head of academy, one of our ex-players, Chris Sargent, who, again, as a club, a lot of our old players have DNA which we want to invest into the whole culture of the club. I mean, they devoted their professional football careers to our football club, and this football club looks long and hard to ensure that we can find places for them when they've done their time on the pitch. And we want to evolve, because all clubs will continue to grow, and I'm hoping that we're building something here that doesn't just last a few seasons. This is going to be a landmark club which people will look back in 100 years and go, wow, that's where it started, that's how it came about. And that will only happen if we keep reinvesting the people that have been in the club, keep reinvesting our in the youth, the development of that youth, the processes that develop them, but using what I believe is a winning structure, which, let's say, the magic glue. But going back to the awards, I was particularly pleased that Aaron Edwards scored the goal of the season, because if you look at all the factors surrounding that, that I think that he'd been possibly goaded to being not such a good player, perhaps by the opposition. If you look at the pressure of the game and the timing of when that was, and how it manifested itself. If you look at the play, that was as good as it gets. I mean, the build-up play, the execution, and the quality of the finish. It wasn't their goalie's fault. It was no player's fault. It was just absolute spectacular play and vision by the TNS players, which had a finale of it going in the back of the net in a spectacular way. So Aaron, was involved in the build-up as well. But if you look at that goal, if it had been scored in the English Premier League, that would have been played over and over again. And in the cruciality of that game, it was the one where there was a lot riding on it for Connah's Quay. But it ended up that we'd won the game very, very comfortably. But obviously that goal gave us the start to that performance. And I think that I have to say that his reaction after scoring put the doubting away management in certainly clear terms that he was a lot better player than they'd given him credit for.
Mike, we've discussed the domestic game so far today, and of course we've got the season coming up not too far into the future. But before we do kick a ball in the Welsh football system, we've got the European Challenge again. We've got the draw on June the 18th. We will know, of course, then where we will be off to. What we want to know is, are we going to see a Mike Harris trip like we did last year, where you and one or two others drove across Europe in a car that you'd purchased the week before?
Well, I think we've got the car. Who knows? I'm going to keep that one under wraps for the time being. It needs a new clutch in it at the moment. It isn't capable of getting from the driveway to the garage under its own steam at the moment. So if we can get a new clutch fitted in that over the next week or two, then I'm pretty certain that there will be a new road trip.
And on to more serious things, of course, the football itself. You've made no secret, Mike, that your ambition as the owner and chairman of the New Saints is to see the club in the group stages of a European competition. Still the same this time round? Absolutely.
I mean, we as a club want to aim for the very highest place we can get to, because it's what football's about. It also established what the football dream is. I mean, if you look at what we've managed to do from a village of 900 people, merging with a local town on the borders, we've managed to set most of the records within our own national league. We are now beyond doubt the clear most successful team that was ever been in the Welsh Premier League, and that's young. Obviously, prior to that, you've had clubs like Barry and Bangor and other teams that have been there with more established histories, perhaps than our own. But obviously, I think the merger between the two clubs had something special. Obviously, it's a very old and well-respected club from the borders, and Lambton Fried always had a very much a bigger punch than what people gave it credit for. So when you put those two things together, you've created something very, very special, and we'd like to make sure that something special continues to boil into Europe, and to establish Wales as one of the best small nations national league teams, and we can only do that by playing in Europe. I mean, the odds are stacked against us so high. I mean, the fact that we've managed to be seeded in round one does give us a chance to draw competition that we could beat. And I always say could, because every single team in that competition will be very heavily funded. So people think, it must be easy to beat them, but it's not. I know last year our opponents from Gibraltar, their budget was twice the size of ours, and that's teams from Gibraltar. Money isn't everything, as I've always said, but when you come up against the teams that have budgets of tens of millions of euros, that it is a lot easier for them to attract perhaps more constantly exceptional talent. And that's not saying we haven't got exceptional talent, but we're always under pressure to lose that exceptional talent to other teams when they can see, obviously, there's a lot more money to be earned in other systems. So we are very conscious of that, but we never doubt our own belief. There are several teams we'd probably try to avoid. Perhaps Bulgarians and Hungarians. These are big leagues, and by the quirk of fate, this year there's been new champions who don't have quite the same coefficient points, so it's put them in the unseeded side. So possibly there's some banana skins that we'd like to avoid, but I would say to you that there's 4 or 5 teams there which we'll go, hey, we can compete on probably a 50-50 term. And if we come out of it on top, it gives us a chance to then giant kill in the next round, because that's what we would have to do to progress in the Champions League. You're looking at beating teams then like Beta Borussia or Celtic, or these are clubs where you're up against it at the very start. But hey, we'll take the David and Goliath position, and every now and then the David gets through.
You mentioned budget on a couple of occasions, Mike, and as you rightfully say, money isn't everything when it comes to winning football games. But do you envisage at some point in the future that the budget of TNS would increase significantly to allow the team to narrow that gap financially with other European sides?
I think the strategy I have, it's not just about money. I mean, we could spend another £1 million and not make any impact whatsoever in terms of performance in Europe, because it probably all it does is shift your dynamic of wages up and still attracting at the same level of player for where we are. To where we see the investment of extra money is in the development of the type of player that we want. So ensuring that the lads who are showing that potential at 14, 15, 16 are in our academy. And we want to get them first team ready, so we may discover the player who is going to be able to get us to the very next levels. We won't do it just by trying to get somebody else's cast off, because if they're going to turn games, we've got to discover them earlier. And that means that we have to invest in them, perhaps from other systems, and bring them in, but at the earliest possible age. Perhaps they've been narrowly overlooked by a Liverpool or a Manchester United, and the player themselves goes, I don't want to drop down to the National League, I don't want to go over there and perhaps be a sub or a under 23s player or under 21s player. I want to go and try and get first team football and establish themselves in a team that's got ambition. And that's where we will find some of our talent. The rest of our talent we need to be developing on that long journey from 6 years of age through our academy, where they're getting coached properly by the best coaches that we can afford, with playing the game in the way that we want to play the game. Those 10,000 hours which it claims a human being can become a athlete, we want those 10,000 hours developing themselves at our club with the very best facilities that we can offer, with the very best coaches who have the same philosophy as what I laid down 20 years ago. And we want that philosophy to continue. And by instilling that philosophy in the length and breadth of our club, we over time will develop a culture which will be able to go on generation after generation, delivering quality football at the highest level it can within the budgets that it can afford. And hopefully this is the story which UEFA and the football families will enjoy, because it's how football should be done. You know, if you look at some of the teams that are in the top leagues now, yes, their manager can go out and get the world's best players. We can't. Not on. He can have them on day one. So if he wants Mbappe, I'm pretty certain that Manchester City's chairman will stomp up 200 million, 300 million, 800 million, go and get him. But we can't do that. We have to develop the equivalent of your Mbappe's, not be able to take them from one of those clubs. So, it's what I think that the world of football would love to see. It's the fairy story, but I'd like to think that over 20 years we've proved by investing wisely and sustainably, we've been able to create the football product that we've done today.
And finally, Mike, you are a well-known user of social media, Twitter in particular, and in recent weeks you've tweeted the likes of Piers Morgan, Donald Trump. Well, this time round, third time lucky, as they say, you actually had a response from Nigel Farage.
I did, and again, if you look at what he's managed to achieve, it's probably a little bit like what TNS has achieved. Nobody would have given us much credit 21 years ago to winning the league, which we did. But if you look at Nigel Farage, he's campaigned and worked for 25 years, where he, whether you like the fella or not like the fella, whether you want to be out of Europe or in Europe, he's actually used democracy and his idea and brought that through and has actually affected change. Which is great to see, and you wish that more countries would do that and believe in the democratic system rather than resort to force or corruption.
And for those who are perhaps not aware of the tweet, Nigel Farage took a number of people that tweeted him and he produced a video and he read out the tweets. He spent some time on yours, Mike. My only surprise was that your tweet wasn't the one about going down the pub.
I think that's where he rang me up after and said, "Hey, I'll take you down the pub for a pint with a comment." No, I'm only joking, but no, it's one where... that's the reason why I tweeted it, and I don't know the guy, and I haven't been to the pub with him. I think he's probably better at the pub than me, so that's the way it goes.
Well, who knows, Mike? Maybe next season at the TNS annual awards evening, we might have Nigel Farage on the stage with us
as our guest speaker. Who knows?
Chairman Mike Harris, thank you for your time as always, and of course thank you for your insights into the workings of the football club.
Thank you very much.